everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you all for tuning in. So tonight I wanted to talk about an album that I have not listened to in a long time, but I listened to it from start to finish, did not skip a track. It was difficult, but I persevered. That album would be Van Halen III, released in 1998, the lone Van Halen album with Gary Cherone on lead vocals. So the two questions I had in my mind when going back and revisiting this album was, one, is this album as bad as I remember it? Is it as bad as people say it is? Yes, it is. Two, is there a way to fix this album and make it better? Yes, there is. So I'm gonna give you my opinions of this album. I'm gonna go through and talk about my thoughts on the album from start to finish, and then at the end, I will give you my ideas as to how I would have fixed this album up and hopefully made this a better album. So, for starters, this album was produced by Mike Post and Eddie Van Halen, and I bring that up because I have two major overall issues with this album, and the production is one of them. This album does not sound good. It sounds very uh, poor. It sounds very dirty and muddy. It's a disaster. I've used words like that to describe Hotter Than Hell from Kiss. In this instance, it doesn't work. It's not even like that kind of a dirty or muddy production. It just sounds like a big mess. It just sounds like a big jumble to me. I don't really care for the guitar tone on here. It sounds like a really poor version of the balanced guitar tone, which was a much crisper, much cleaner sounding tone, which I wish that tone was on here because I think it would have done this album a lot more justice. Mike Post is a guy who's not really even a rock album producer. He worked on like TV themes. I think Law and Order, Quantum Leap, maybe. I'm not sure what all else he did, but he worked on television theme songs. So it's kind of an odd choice that they went with Mike Post to produce this album. And kind of like when my New York Jets decided to hire Adam Gase as head coach a couple years ago, maybe that just wasn't a good idea. So I don't know what the thought process was behind hiring Mike Post. I'm not sure, but I don't think it worked out very well. The other thing that I have against this album is, and I hate to say this because I like Gary Cherone a lot. I really like him in Extreme. I think he's a great singer. I think he's a great lyricist. But I don't think this is Gary Cherone's best work. Now, his voice doesn't sound very good in this album. I put that more on the production. He sounds like he's singing underwater with a sore throat or something throughout most of this album. I don't put that on Gary. I think that's a problem with the production. Um, Gary's issue, I don't think this is a lot of his best lyrical work on this album, for one. And for two, I don't like his vocal delivery in some of these songs. I heard Gary say once in an interview, I want to say it was with Eddie Trunk, but I could be wrong, that he thinks in retrospect Van Halen should have gone out and toured first before going into the album or into the studio and dropping another album. And that very well could be why I'm not a fan of a lot of his vocal delivery on here. Maybe it's just lack of chemistry with Eddie Van Halen in the band. Very possible. I'm willing to say that that's probably what that is, because I know Gary Cherone is better than you would pick up on just listening to this album, because I heard this before I ever heard Extreme. So when I heard Extreme and heard how good Gary was with that band, I was like kind of surprised. I don't know if you can hear the dog barking outside. I apologize if you can, but yeah, I was surprised to say the least. And I'm not nearly as big of an Extreme fan as a Van Halen fan, but I think Gary Cherone does a fantastic job in that band. So the problem to me not necessarily is with Gary Cherone. I think the production hurts him, and maybe the lack of chemistry with the rest of the band may be why this is not one of Gary's better works. So let's go through and talk about this album track by track, and then at the end I'm going to give you what I would do to kind of shore this album up and hopefully make it better. One thing I don't think I noticed before was how this album is almost perfectly divided into three tiers for me. The first tier is actually not bad. The second tier has some good ideas, but not well executed. And the third tier is really bad. So starting off with New World, the album opener, I like this one a lot. It's just a minute and a half instrumental, um, just kind of a really beautiful piece of music from Eddie Van Halen. Some keyboards in it, some acoustic guitars. It's just really kind of laid back and just a really nice piece of music. I love the way that it kicks this album off, actually. I have no problem with New World as it is. The second song, Without You, I like a lot as well. It's probably my favorite song on the album. I like the way that Without You goes back and forth between the rock and the really mellow side. I think the two different parts of the song really work well in harmony with each other. Um, I think my overall issues with this album, such as the production and the lack of chemistry, if you solve them, I think you make Without You a really great Van Halen song. So, as it is, Without You, I don't really have too many issues with. One I Want, I don't think is that bad of a song either. It's kind of cheesy, but I kind of like what they're going for with the lyrics. Yes, it's kind of cheesy, but you know what? So was Wham Bam Amsterdam on Balance, and I love that song. So it can work. I really think it could work. Again, better production. I think this song could work. Next, we move into the second tier of this album, which there's some interesting ideas that I don't think are pulled off very well. Starting with track 4, From Afar. This song's not as bad as I remember it being, actually. But what I don't like about the song is what always sticks out in my mind, and that is the verses. Um, the I cannot see you from afar, and then the guitar comes in, the bam 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 bam. It's too much. The first verse, okay. When it went back into the second verse after the chorus, and it goes back into the second verse, I'm over that. And I would actually cut out a good chunk of the middle of this song. I marked down here 209 to 316 is kind of like the second verse, chorus. I would cut it. I would just go from the first verse and chorus, which is 2 minutes and 8 seconds, and then go right into the bridge and the guitar solo. It would still be a 4.5 minute song at that point, but I don't think it would drag as much as kind of that second verse does for me. I think it would be, it would be a more unique song structure, but I think it would work better. It would save the song from overstaying its welcome, in my opinion. So From Afar, kind of like some things in there, but it kind of overstays its welcome with the verse. It just gets to be too much. Dirty Water Dog. I used to not like this one. I still don't know that I like this one, but it's not as bad as I remember it being. I think the intro is pretty cool. The drum work is kind of cool. The beginning guitar work is pretty cool. The lyrics aren't very good, but the song itself is all right. I think the chorus, again, I kind of wish this chorus would just soar a little bit more than it does. It's trying to be big, it just doesn't quite get there. So, I don't know. I do think that if this was like a demo or something, or like a rough draft of a song, I could see where they were going with it. I would maybe want them to record it again, definitely brush up the production, clean it up a little bit. But Dirty Water Dog is all right. It was better than I remember it being. All right, so the one song on here that I would say is a real hidden gem is A Song Once. Much better song than I remember it being last time I listened to it. The problem is it takes until 127 for the song to grab me. So I'm sitting through a minute and a half of this thinking not much. And then when the minute 27 mark hits and the song really starts to take off, then I get into it and I really like it. And as I was listening to it and I was trying to think, how would this song grab me quicker? And I think it just, again, I hate to sound like a broken record, it comes down to the production, because it's just not that pleasing of a guitar tone, and Gary's voice is not that pleasing to listen to on here. Had all of that been cleaned up, I think maybe you get the kind of crisper tone that's on like a balance. If you have Gary's voice kind of cleaned up a little bit and kind of just have his vocals presented in a better non-underwater kind of a way, then this song might click with me right off the get-go. But it takes about a minute and a half, but this song then really was much better than I remembered it being. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Fire in the Hole, I don't like as much as I remember liking it. I love the riff, though. I think that's what really stands out to me, is that the riff is really sweet, but the rest of the song is just sort of okay. Lyrics aren't that good. Kind of typical Van Halen 3 problems with it, so I hate to sound like a broken record, but that's really what it comes down to. Track 8, Josephina. Okay. There's a few bits of guitar work in here that I think is quite catchy, but the song around it is not good. The lyrics are really bad. The delivery's bad. And one of those lines that just sticks out to me as being cringy is the all dressed up in your mother's clothes part. Like, what do you guys, what? It's just not a pleasing song. I can't, the song's like 5 minutes and some odd seconds, and I can't, just because it has like little bits and pieces of nice guitar work here and there, it doesn't salvage the whole thing. And the fact that this song was put on the album in place of what would have been the second best track on the whole album, yeah. So at this point, right after this song ended, a coworker, I was listening to this at work, I had my earbuds in, the coworker was saying something to me, so I paused the music and talked to my coworker for a minute, and the radio that was playing at her station, which surprised me because she usually listens to country music, was playing Jump. I'm like, why am I listening to Van Halen 3? I could be listening to Jump. I could be listening to Van Halen 1. I could be listening to 5150. So I stopped for a minute and I listened to Jump. And then I pressed play and I finished the rest of the album. All right. So, like I said, with Josephina is not a good song. But the one thing about this album, I don't think there's any song on here where the guitar work is bad. The guitar work is good throughout most of this album. Is it my favorite Eddie Van Halen guitar work? No, I wouldn't go that far. But the guitar work's never bad. It just can't salvage some of the really bad songs that are written around it. Next up is Year to the Day. And Year to the Day drags on for about a year to the day. The song is roughly the same length as Master of Puppets, and my God, does it feel so much longer. And Eddie really kind of goes on a nice solo in the middle of the song. It's just the song around it. I've never been that bored listening to a Van Halen song. I really haven't. I mean, even Van Halen songs I don't like Summer Nights, Sucker in a Three-Piece, and Spanked, I'm never bored listening to them. This one just about could have put me to sleep, and I don't even remember it that well. All the other songs that I've listened to on here are still fresh in my mind, even though I have not listened to a lot of them in a long time. I listened to them again. They're fresh in my mind. Year to the Day went in one ear and out the other, and I just didn't care for it. Primary, I have no opinion. It's okay. It's like strung out to me. Does it need to be there? Not really. There's nothing special about it. It's not terrible, but it's just kind of there. Ballad or Bullet, I think, is the best song on the back end of the album. It's a really nice rocking song. They could have really made this a really cool heavy song too. I think, again, I think maybe the only way to fix this song would be to have Gary Cherone and the band work on their chemistry a little bit. This is a song that, had it been done a year later, had they gone out and toured, gelled a little bit, kind of gotten the chemistry down, this song would probably been a lot better. I don't think you have to change too much. It just kind of feels very jarring, and it kind of feels like, I don't know, the lack of chemistry is kind of at the forefront of this song. But the song's really, it's a pretty cool song. It's pretty rocking. I think there's some nice guitar work in it. I like the way that the song sort of mellows out after the chorus and then gets back into the heavy. So that all is pretty cool. I think it's the best song on the back end of the album by far. So, Ballad or Bullet, another one of those songs I think that is just a victim of the overall issues with the album. Coming in at the end, How Many Say I? I take no pleasure in saying this because I love this band. I love Eddie Van Halen. This is the worst Van Halen song ever. And I don't think it's really that close. Year to the Day was not good. Josephina was not good. Apolitical Blues is not good. Sucker in a Three-Piece, Spanked, Summer Nights. This is the worst one. Eddie Van Halen, I would have never, I don't know if this was just a bad take or if he is just this bad of a lead singer, but it doesn't work. Eddie, I'm sorry, man. And he's a great background vocalist. His vocal harmonies back in the day with Mike Anthony behind David Lee Roth and even Sammy Hagar would have never led me to believe that he was this bad. And look, I love Joe Perry. Joe Perry's, I don't love him as much as Eddie Van Halen. He's a great guitar player. He's not a good singer, but he makes it work. So I don't understand how Eddie couldn't have made it work. The song's not good too. I mean, other than Eddie's vocals, the song is not good. The piano work is really distracting. It's just like really, I don't know. It's just so jarring, and it's like, I don't know. It's almost anxiety inducing. It's just really over dramatic or something. I don't know. The piano, Eddie's got much better keyboard work throughout Van Halen's career than he does here. Gary's background vocals don't mesh with Eddie's at all. The harmonies just don't really work well. And the strings in the middle of the song, if this was a good song, I think it would have been like a really nice touch to put it over the top. But it's basically just, I don't know, it's like you're trying to put a Band-Aid on a broken limb at this point. It's not working. Oh, man. Man, I'm not a fan of How Many Say I. Look, I take no pleasure in bashing my favorite band, or one of my favorite bands like this, but How Many Say I is not a good song. I'm sorry. If there's anybody out there who actually does like it, more power to you, but I don't get it. So, there's a bonus track out there on YouTube called That's Why I Love You. And this is the song that Josephina bumped off the album. That's Why I Love You would have been at least the second best song on the album. Easy. The guitar work in that song is amazing. It's probably would have been my favorite guitar work on the entire album. It's just got that Van Halen, that Eddie Van Halen feel to it that even the song around it is okay. I mean, Gary sounds okay on it. The lyrics are whatever. The melody's nice. I think the vocal delivery from Gary Cherone is pretty decent on that song, actually. Man, it could have been a really, it should have been on the album, man. If you're going to cut something to put Josephina on the album, I don't know why that was the song he chose to cut, but, man, that should have been on the album because it's a really good song. So, to shore this thing up, what would I do to fix this album? Well, like I said, I think Gary Cherone is absolutely right when he says that they should have toured first and then made a studio album. I think it would have given the band some time to gel and to create some chemistry with one another. It doesn't feel like they're on the same page when you listen to this album. So I think that would have been a really good idea. And, you know, of course, hindsight being 2020, but I think Gary Cherone is absolutely correct when he says that. I think that might have solved some of the problems with this album. The production, I think they should have gone to somebody with Mike Post. Someone who could have really gotten a much crisper, cleaner, more appealing sound, not only to Eddie's guitar playing, but also to Gary's vocals. and really let Gary's voice shine as opposed to kind of, I don't know, giving it that underwater feel to it. It's just, it sounds like he's singing underwater on this album in a lot of it. So clean that up. Clean up the production, clean up the way that Gary sounds, clean up the guitar tone, all that. I would keep New World. I would keep Without You. I would keep One I Want. I would keep um I would add That's Why I Love You. I would keep Once. I would even keep Dirty Water Dog and Fire in the Hole. You know, I think those songs, even though I'm not crazy about them, maybe just having the band firing on all cylinders a little bit more would have made those songs a little bit better. I would get rid of Josephina. I would get rid of Year to the Day. I would keep Ballad or Bullet, and I would get rid of How Many Say I. And From Afar, I would keep the song, but like I said, I would kind of cut out the middle section. I would shrink the song up a little bit because it does feel like the song overstays its welcome. That verse is just too weird to me. Like I don't mind that being at the beginning of the song, but having to listen to that all the way up to the 3 minute and 17-second mark is just too much for me. I have had my fill of it at that point. So I would shrink the song down, cut out the second verse, and just kind of go from the first verse to the chorus to the bridge. Kind of a funky song structure there, but I think it would work. So what I should have done, I didn't do. This is maybe I'll do another episode in the future of trimming the filler and kind of give you exactly what I would do to make Van Halen 3 better. But that's what it comes down to, really, is the chemistry and the production. I think that's what really harms this album a lot. So let me know in the comments below your thoughts on Van Halen 3. Do you like this album? Do you think it's terrible? What songs do you think are worth keeping? Which ones do you think are, not worth keeping? That kind of stuff. If you like this kind of content, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this in the future, and I will catch you next time.